Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And good evening, MFHL fans. Welcome into this edition of the MFHL podcast, episode 7 here in season 2. The return of this one, live on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Special thanks to Terrico, Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders for sponsoring another edition of this podcast. It's going to be me going solo for this week. It's been quite a few weeks here, ladies and gentlemen, indeed, for sure, as well, as we've had some technical difficulties, computer-wise, but we're back now, and I'm excited for this one. It's going to be a look back right now at how the season's really gone so far in the MFHL. We're going to be taking you through the latest scores from around the league. We got some highlights to show you as well from our broadcast on Wednesday night between the Winnipeg Avros and the Winnipeg Ice. And yeah, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on all 9 teams here in this league, in this episode, brought to you by our wonderful sponsors here on the MFHL podcast for episode 7, season 2. Yeah, first little bit of reporting here coming up soon. Well, yeah, let's take a look at how the past week of games went in the MFHL. They've also started week 5 in the league. We'll get into that shortly here. But yeah, in terms of the game results from Friday night, the league resuming action from the U18 Women's Nationals Championships, as they took a 2-week hiatus for the players that were participating in that tournament. For Team Manitoba, there were many MFHL players who did. There were some featured in that Winnipeg Avros and Eastman Selects game, as the Winnipeg Avros took it by a close score, 2-1 in a shootout, to remain the hottest team in the league at the time. In terms of how the games ended up going on Saturday and Sunday, the Avros finally getting that elusive win that they've been searching for against the Winnipeg Ice, as the Ice went 5-0 against the Avros last year in head-to-head play, and also won the first meeting of the season between the two squads. But that one, the Avros were actually down 2-1 and powered through with 2 big goals in that third period to come away with the victory. Pembina Valley with a big win over the Brandon Wheat Kings in overtime, and then looking at Sunday, the Pembina Valley Hawks again with another huge win to finish off off their weekend against the Yellowhead Chiefs. We get to the Week 5 schedule as it started off on Wednesday. The Hawks' winning streak came to a halt as the Eastman Selects end up taking that by a score of 4-1. The Avros with a 5-1 victory over the Winnipeg Ice at the Seven Oaks Arena on Winnipeg's home ice. And as for yesterday, there was a lone game in the league as the Yellowhead Chiefs got back into the win column, their biggest win of the season so far, 4-2 against the Westman Wildcats. The Caps and Hawks currently playing tonight in Morden, Manitoba. 3 games on deck tomorrow and 3 as well on Sunday to conclude Week 5 in the MFHL's regular season play. We're going to be in Niverville tomorrow, actually, for that matchup between the Selects and the Winnipeg Ice. Should be a lot of fun for sure. But in terms of the Winnipeg Avros and the Winnipeg Ice, these two teams had a chance to go at it for a third time out of 5 times this season. I think they might be playing one more game in there, given that there's 9 teams in the league now, adding in one more in Brandon. But yeah, as for the Ice and the Avros, one of these teams was looking for the advantage in the early season head-to-head, as it was split at 1 apiece heading into Wednesday night, and it was the Avros who end up starting off strong in this one. The Ice ended up making a good push through that second period, and for the first half of that third period, but it would be the Avros, powered by top-end talent, players stepping up from all across their lineup in that one, with Evie West, their team captain, out of the lineup, looking for, of course, their 8th win in a row at the time, as we got a new type of way of showing our highlights here that will be showing on our social media as well. I want to give you a sneak peek of it with the goals from the Avros 5-1 win against the Winnipeg Ice. Walker, as this will be taken away, scores! Sydney Haggart goes rooftop on Gina Plett. Pierre, nice move. Makes it to the net. Pierre dangling in. Nolgren scores! That pass to the blue line through the middle. Now it's a 3-on-1 developing for this Ice team. Scores! And it's the Ice this time, taking advantage of some open ice. It's back into the ice zone, held at the point. Shortridge, that backhand scores! To the point, backhand pass back to Wozni there from number 16. And Leah Clausen out in front, scores! Callie Lavalley! But Nicholas ends up losing a handle on this, and now it's Rio Pierre who gets behind all the Ice defense and on Plett, backhand scores! Well, we've seen her do this before tonight, getting behind the Winnipeg Ice defense. And there you have it, the Winnipeg Ice. Very impressive display from their top players in that matchup, and it was Rio Pierre who shined in that one. Callie Lavalley also adding a goal to her goal total this year. And yeah, I mean, this Avros team was challenged by that Winnipeg Ice team in that second period. The Ice controlled and dominated most of play, and then they came out hard in that third period of play. But the Avros ended up getting back on the board with a goal to make it 3-1 at the time, and then powered through with 2 unanswered afterwards, courtesy of many of their top end players. And speaking of the stats leaders, or the standings in the MFHL, so far it's the Eastman Selects who are on top of the standings, as just realizing there's an error in here, as the Winnipeg Avros should be over the Westman Wildcats. But yeah, no team has scored more than the Winnipeg Avros so far this season. No team's been better than the Eastman Selects at keeping that puck out of the net. For the Winnipeg Ice and Yellowhead Chiefs, they're currently tied in the standings. The Ice with a better record, though, compared to the Chiefs, and 3 games in hand on them. Brandon's played the least games out of any team in this league so far this season, as they played 6 at this point. A team where I'm going to be keeping my eye on them as this season goes along, with the type of talent that this group has this year. But as for the points leaders, the goals leaders starting off with Ivy Perkin on top with 12 so far for the second year forward for the Westman Wildcats, last year's Rookie of the Year in the MFHL. Behind her, trailing by 3 goals, is Lavalley and Pierre. Lavalley, a rookie this season. Schutte and Anderson round out the goal leaders there. As for assist leaders, Pierre ended up jumping over top of Veda Rigo in the assist leader category there, as she had 2 in that win against the Winnipeg Ice, along with the goal in the 5-1 win. Many Wildcats round out this list, as there's 3 there: Perkin, Waldner, and Schutte. Rigo will see what she can do tomorrow to add to that assist total, as she'll be looking to be a big part of the Eastman Selects performance tomorrow against the Winnipeg Ice. As for the points leaders, it's Perkin and Pierre who are tied at the top of the point leaderboards. And really, I mean, with these 2 players being rookies last year and how dominant they were, and them taking the ice for their second season in the MFHL this year, I don't think it's too surprising to see this jump in the points. Pierre has a better points per game average, as she has 3 games less played than Perkin, 9 for Pierre compared to the 12 for Perkin. Both of these players, funny enough, as well, goal per game players this year too. So they've been phenomenal. Reese, Schutte, Veda Rigo, and Waldner also strong. As you saw on the assist leaderboards, they also round out the point leaderboards here. Now, as for the goaltenders, Addison Tomes with the victory in net against the Pembina Valley Hawks on Wednesday night, moves to 5-1, a 9.44 save percentage. Team Manitoba goaltender has been phenomenal. Her counterpart in Isabelle Bossier has also been phenomenal as well. Yet to lose in regulation, as I should say, and she also has a shutout. The tandem for the Westman Wildcats has been very strong as well, and same with the Winnipeg Avers tandem in Almeida, as well as Sylvester. Sylvester has yet to lose any games this season. She'll be making her way onto this top 5, I'd assume, possibly at some point this season, but we'll have to wait and see. We're going to throw it to a commercial break here. You're going to see our Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia commercial, and coming up, we're going to be taking you through all 9 teams in the MFHL, the outlook on their season so far, and just talking about them, breaking them down, all that good stuff. You're watching the MFHL podcast here live on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. We'll be back for more after this quick commercial break from Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry upper deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Welcome back to this edition of the MFHL podcast here live on G-Show Productions. Hoping you're enjoying it so far. This one brought to you by Make-Can Fasteners and Tools, Carico, Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. As for us, we're going to be heading down to Niverville tomorrow afternoon, as I should say. that may be an indicator may need some more sleep. But yeah, heading down there tomorrow, the Ice taking on the Selects. We're going to be talking about these two teams coming up here along with all 9 in the MFHL. We're going to start from bottom of the standings going all the way to the top here. So starting off with the Interlake Lightning. The Lightning so far 0-8-1. They're searching for that first win, coming off of their best season in franchise history last year as they got to 10 wins. This team this year, I mean, honestly, they got pretty solid goaltending on paper with Jane Sugimoto and Ori Kennedy coming over to this squad this season. But we take a look at their goals against. Yes, it's at 33 goals against for them in these 9 games, but what's been lacking more has been that offense. Only 10 goals in 9 games played. Now, Chloe Minkus has about half of those goals. She's a great player for this Lightning team, but last season they had probably their best roster in franchise history on paper. You take a look at some of the talent they've lost as well this season with the Rigos going over to the Eastman Selects this year. So there's some holes for sure that this team has been dealing with this year. And hey, look, they've been close in games still. And this is a team that is going to give you a high compete level always. And a team where I think as the season goes along, as they start to, realize what works best for them, maybe they change to more of a defensive system if they haven't already. They could maybe find some more success. But Interlake historically has always been a team that gives a really big test to the top teams. They're always up for those games. So still expect for this team to be competitive as the season goes along. But yeah, I think searching for win 1 once they get that, maybe things start to roll in their favor in this very competitive league. But for the Central Plains Capitals, they've been in games so far. All season long. They've been trusting the process as well, I think, as they've been able to get in the win column 2 times at this point, 2 overtime losses as well. And yeah, for this team this year, I think, looking at the statistics, not much more offense compared to this Interlake Lightning team, but what this Central Plains Capitals team has that I don't think any teams in the league, even though they have really solid goaltenders, in terms of the skill level, don't have a goaltender as dominant as Elise Denbo. And I think for Denbo, this is going to be a goaltender that I think this team should lean on this season in terms of building the system kind of around her as the season goes along. Not sure what Ferdy Nelson has in store, but what I mean by that is maybe look to go to more of that defensive system, play to more of your strong suit, which is, Elise Denbo in that end of the ice, and then be opportunistic on your chances. It seems like Central Plains has done that in their wins as well this year. So, yeah, a team that, taken over by Ferdy Nelson, getting better as the season goes along with their results. And yeah, really excited to see where the veteran coach and former MFHL champion and head coach for the Central Plains Capitals team can take this year's Capitals squad. As for the Brandon Wheat Kings, winning some and losing some so far this year. They have a 500 record. That record is wrong there, as you can see. They should be 3-2-1 instead, as they have an overtime loss in there. And that loss, of course, in overtime coming to Pembina Valley earlier on I guess last weekend. But yeah, I think this is a team that's only going to get better. You take a look at the players that they received, from around the MFHL, heading into this year when we're talking about players like a Paige Crossley, Danica Averill in net. Jordan Bell has been a strong player for them as well. And as we take a look at the statistics for the Brandon Wheat Kings, yeah, players like Sydney Sass as well. 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points for Sydney. A player that didn't end up playing in the MFHL last year, but comes over from that U15 AAA Brandon squad. And with that, Carissa Kirkup, the head coach of this team, has some familiarity with some of her players and has also done a really good job, I think, in getting this team to trust this process early on. I think that this is a team with a lot of skill, a team that, from what I've seen so far in the only game that we called on the network between them and the Pembina Valley Hawks so far this year, I thought that this was a team that got better as the game went along, made good adjustments as the game went along, and they got one of the best goaltenders in the league in Danica Averill. If you can rely on her this year while continuing to put pucks in the net, get better in your own end, I think this team's going to be the potential sleeper team, given Carissa Kirkup's history as a head coach down with the U15 AAA program in Brandon, as they won back-to-back championships the past 2 seasons with her at head coach. So yeah, I think this is a team with a good mix of some returning players in the league, a group with some players that have come up in the ranks from the U15 AAA squad in Brandon that have been beneficial to this team so far this year. Most notably, like mentioned, Sydney Sass, and yeah, a team that's well coached and should only get better as the season goes along here, in my opinion, as they start to play more games, playing the least out of any team so far this year. As for the Pembina Valley Hawks, they've taken the biggest leap forward out of any team in the standings, jumping from near the bottom of the standings all the way to near the middle of the pack. And this is a top end talent leading the way for this team so far. When we take a look at players that have been making noise for this team, Jessica Anderson leading the way in goals for this squad. But a player that has been even better than her in total games played has been Cassie O'Brien. A player that has 28 points so far in 24 total games. She made her debut in the league last year, the 09 forward did. She had a hat trick in that big 7-4 victory over the Yellowhead Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, you take a look at this team, very underrated forward group in my opinion, one of the best top lines in the league, led by Jessica Anderson. She has, of course, top 5 goal totals in league play, but 15 goals in 23 total games for the stud for the Pembina Valley Hawks. And with that top end talent leading the way, with this team getting better and getting further up in the standings, what's next for them? This was a team last year that went out in the first round, but gave the team they were playing against in the Westman Wildcats very good tests in all 3 of those games, keeping them close in that sweep. And this is a team that brings players back this season, and Jessica Anderson and Abigail Brigg, players like Emma Durand, players in net like Cassie Rakowski that have been here before, that have been through the struggles throughout the years. And for some of these players in their last seasons, they're probably wanting a bit more success come playoff time, right? So what's next for them? I think it's about continuing to build the process, continuing to build your confidence as the season goes along. Make it a goal to, climb further and further higher up in the standings. But if you can get your process right and play your A game, playing your A game, closer to playoff time heading into it, that could benefit this Pembina Valley Hawks team very well this season, as they're a fun group to watch so far this year. We'll see how high they fly as the season goes along. But as for the Yellowhead Chiefs, wow, look at that error right there. 2 eyes and win, I don't think so, but it maybe warranted that because it was their biggest win of the season last night. It was 4-2 over the Westman Wildcats. It was a tough reset for this team coming out of the break from U18 Women's Nationals. Taking a look at the scores, of course, they ended up dropping that matchup against the Pembina Valley Hawks 7-4 on Sunday. Ended up losing to the Westman Wildcats 2-1 on Saturday. So it was a matter of revenge, I guess, for the Yellowhead Chiefs team, and they come away successful in that revenge. But no matter what the record is like for this team, they're a very well-coached team, a team that has some very good players back when we're talking about players like Kirby Gray and Cochran on the back end, for the squad this season. A team that has some okay goaltending as well, and a team that's been, in the Final Four in this league, year in and year out consistently. So, in my opinion, for this Yellowhead Chiefs team, obviously you got to, find ways to maybe settle down some of the penalties. But even then, I think for them, it's even about trusting the process, making improvements on your game as the season goes along, because you know very well you've had a history with this group of making it past the first round of the playoffs. It's about how do you get to that next step, and championships aren't won in the regular season. So how does Yellowhead get to the top of their game as this season continues to roll along? We'll have to wait and see to find out. As for the Winnipeg Ice, 5-3, coming off of a 5-1 loss to the Winnipeg Avros, and a team that ended up getting off to a slow start against the Winnipeg Avros. I know in talking to Eugene Kaminsky, that's something that's kind of been a theme of what he's been telling me the past few years. If there's anything he'd like to see better from his team, I think it's been those starts, and they could have definitely benefited from a faster start against the Winnipeg Avros in that loss on Wednesday, because, like I said, they looked like the better team in that second period. Only held the Avros to 2 shots, as the Avros put up 15 in the first period. And, the wheels ended up coming off after they let up that 3-1 goal in that third period, and the Avros took over again. But as you can see on the graphic, they're no longer the favorite in terms of the top favorite in the league, in my opinion, at this point in the season. I don't think their record warrants that at 5-3. I think in terms of the Avros Ice matchup, even though the Ice got them in the first matchup of the season, now the Avros moved to 2-1 on them in the year. But all that being said, that's okay, because this team is still a contender. And I think for this Ice team, it's about finding consistency this year throughout their game as this season continues to go along. You lost some really good players last year, right? From last year's squad. And Stephanie Jacob up front, who was, I think, the unanimous best player in the league. You lost some talent in the pipes with Laura Melissa graduating out. On the back end as well with Caitlin Moffat and Brienne Comte also aging out too. But you still got great players on this team like Izzy Mann, who has stepped up this season, taken on a bigger role as the captain. You still got good puck moving defense. You still got pretty solid goaltending. And you still got a group that I think players, if this Ice team wants to have any shot at winning third in a row, those players are going to have to step up, especially the top ones. But this is still an Ice team that's deep, still an Ice team that plays with good pace, that can hem you in on the forecheck. It's about finding that consistency, though, for this squad, and how can they do that as the season goes along, and even finding consistency in the little things. I think that that matchup they had against the Winnipeg Avros could have been a lot different if they put away some rebounds, but they ended up rolling off of their sticks, or the Ice ended up fanning on them. So consistency, the biggest thing I think for this group heading forward as the season rolls along. We're going to end off with the next 3 teams here coming up after this next little transition. You're watching the MFHL podcast here on G-Show Productions, brought to you by Midkent Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. More to come after this little commercial break, this little transition, as I should say. Welcome back to this edition of the MFHL podcast. Before we continue on with the final 3 teams to break down and take a look at, I want to give a shout out to Cassie O'Brien and Anna Almeida, who end up winning Offensive and Defensive Players of the Week. O'Brien winning Offensive Player of the Week, 7 points in 3 games this past weekend. A huge part of that was that hat trick and assist performance against the Yellowhead Chiefs in that 7-4 victory. O'Brien, second year forward, looking like she's developing pretty nicely out there for this Pembina Valley Hawks team so far this year. Congratulations to her on getting that Week 4 Player Award recognition. As for Almeida, I mean, we had her, like you saw, she's top 2 in terms of the goalie stats right now that we put up, and 2 wins, only 4 goals allowed in those games, and big in the shootout as well, going 1-on-1 against those Wildcat shooters. So big credit to her. on getting that Defensive Player Awards recognition. As for the Winnipeg Avers, we're going to get into them in just a moment here. But we'll start off with the Westman Wildcats. For the Westman Wildcats, it's been consistency to start off the year. An 8-3 record. Once again, an error in the text, but next one up, it's been that mentality for them this year, losing players like Avro, like Crossley, players that, played some key roles for them last year. But Hack has been huge in net, same with Stone and Ivy Perkin, Reese Schutte really stepping up. And it's been that star power that's really led this Westman Wildcats team so far. But for Westman, my big question is, how is their depth going to come through this year? Because we take a look at the statistics. It's always great to have top-end players that are putting the puck in the net at a high level, right? I think that you're going to benefit the most from those players come playoff time if they're able to continue to step up. Because if they were the best in the regular season, among the best in the regular season, and they're able to raise that level and raise their game even higher in the playoffs, that's always beneficial for teams. And Westman has had that throughout, these past 3 years, making it to the finals 3 years in a row. And, back in 2018-19, winning a championship. But taking a look at the total stats for Westman this year, the top goal scorers, Ivy Perkin with 18, Reese Schutte with 11. Then there's a drop between Schutte and Lucy Waldner, as Waldner only has 5. So, to me, that's a bit concerning, but this season is a long one ahead, and Westman, they're always a contender, and this is a team that I think, as the year goes along, their other pieces are going to start to contribute and put the puck in the net more. Really impressed with Indigo Stone, her stat line so far this year, and Kylie Hack among the best in the league with her win-loss record. This is a team that every single year, no matter what the case may be, they always find themselves near the top of the standings, and once again, they're in a fight right now, tight for first place in the league. As we turn over to the Avros, just got to plug my computer in here. Have been having some battery problems, but no problems for the hottest team in the league in the MFHL right now in the Winnipeg Avros, since dropping the season opener to the Winnipeg Ice by a score of 4-3 in the shootout. 8 straight wins for this team. Offensive juggernaut, 48 goals for, and just a well-rounded squad. They got levels up front in terms of their lines. All 3 lines can be threats for this team. We saw how this defensive core unscathed, even with their best defenseman and one of their best players in Evie West missing last game with an injury. And then you look at their goaltending, Anna Almeida and Madeline Sylvester. You could make the argument that this may be the best goaltending tandem in the league. This is a team that was young last year, a team that brings a lot of experience into this year, added to this talented roster, adding in rookies like Callie Lavallee to it, who looked very strong APing last year for this team's biggest rival in the Winnipeg Ice, and adding a player like Adeline Nolgren to the squad. Then you got underrated players who are returning as well that are really making names for themselves. Maybe I shouldn't call her underrated, as she was a stud for them last year, but maybe doesn't get talked about as much as other top defensemen in the league, as Shortridge. She stepped up big time in the absence of Evie West in that 5-1 win on Wednesday for this Avros squad. So knowing that they have players that can step up, knowing they have this amount of star power and this roster, it's just about doing the job now and finishing the job. This was a team last year that went through a lot of struggles, went through the losses, found ways, but ended up not being able to find ways to get the job done in the wins, and that came to the forefront in their quarterfinals loss to the Yellowhead Chiefs, where they are up 2-0 in that series, and then end up going home, losing 3 straight to be ousted in the playoffs as the Chiefs moved on to play against the Winnipeg Ice. I think for the Avros this year, they're finishing games a lot stronger to start off this year. I think they're going to learn from last year, their mistakes. of not being able to finish off their games. And I think that just came down to a bit of inexperience last year with the youth of this team. More experience this year. And for my money right now, with this team, how they've been chasing that championship, that's been oh so elusive for them since they've made it back into the league, or made it into the league in their inaugural season in 2011. This could very well be the year for the Avs, and you got to thank Ashley Van Agelen with the experience she's had and learning from these losses, has her group focusing one game at a time and not looking forward as best as they can. But as for the Eastman Selects, they are a bit better than the Avs so far this year record-wise, even though the Winnipeg Avs ended up beating them in their only matchup of the season so far. But yeah, they're currently 2 points up on the Avs in the standings. And yeah, Eastman taking an even further next step in their game compared from last year to this year. They had their best record in franchise history last year, reaching, I think, 20 wins, tied with the Westman Wildcats for second in the standings. So far this year, they've started off even better with only one regulation loss through 11 games. And one of those losses, of course, coming in a shootout, most recently against the Winnipeg Avs. This is a team that has a dominant forecheck, can play with a lot of pace, and really that their game kind of thrives and, builds off of that forecheck. They got very good levels to their game on their attack, very well structured. Their D do a very good job at holding the line, and that offensive zone time is really worn down teams this year with the Eastman Select's ability to just keep pounding away on the forecheck on that cycle. I think in their own end, too, this is a team where Laird Leluc, their head coach, who was an assistant for them last year and for the past 2 years, has this team continuing to build off of the strong defensive system that Todd Mason had last year, which has them playing very structured and protecting their goaltender, that crease, those high-danger scoring areas, the best they can. This is a team that's only allowed 22 shots against per game this season. A team that's gotten really solid goaltending from where you could make the argument Addison Tomes being a Team Manitoba goaltender, and with the way Isabelle Labossiere has looked this year, that they could be the best goaltending tandem in the league. I think that could be up for debate. But yeah, the only question about this team, they have all the pieces to, I think, make a run at a championship this season. It's just, can you beat the top teams? They failed to hold on against the Westman Wildcats, failed to close things out against the Winnipeg Avs in that shootout. Shootouts won't be played in the playoffs, but this is a team that's the biggest question mark. How will you fare against those top teams among the top in the league? And I think for Eastman this year, they had success against every single top team in the league besides the Westman Wildcats, as Westman beat them in every regular season game. So they can do it. They've proven it last year. It's just about doing it again. And once they can beat one of those top teams, I think the confidence is going to grow even more. They have a chance to do that tomorrow against the Winnipeg Ice, as that game will be live in Niverville, from Niverville tomorrow on the network. Coverage will start just after 1:50 p.m. With our pregame show, and then puck drops at 2 p.m. Central Time. Should be a good one, and can't wait for it. But we got a busy night ahead of us still. Got the MMJHL podcast coming up next in about 5 minutes here, so I'm going to send it to one more transition here, and we'll finish off with some final words on this special edition of the MFHL podcast and the return here for Episode 7, Season 2. Well, you made it to the end of Episode 7, Season 2 of the MFHL podcast. Special thanks to you, the viewer, for coming on to YouTube and tuning in to this edition of the MFHL podcast. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like. Also, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Helps us out, and will help you out by, if you don't want to miss any future uploads, well, you turn on notifications. Boom, there you are. You're notified right away, right when they come out. But yeah, special thanks to our sponsors and Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools Terrico Goaltenders and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. MFHL Game Day returning tomorrow once again for a second time this week. 2 p.m. will be puck drop in Niverville at the matchup between the Selects and the Winnipeg Ice. Pre-game coverage will start just after 1:50 p.m. tomorrow. Puck drop, of course, at 2 p.m. As for the MFHL podcast, next episode comes out next Friday. Stay up to date on our website, gshow.ca, as well as our social media pages, as we'll be posting the details of that episode coming up then. But, yeah, it's been Graham the G Show Forsyth here for another edition of the MFHL podcast here on G Show Productions. Getting ready for the MMJHL podcast coming out next. Stay tuned. We'll be going live for that in the next few minutes. But until next time, for MFHL content, MFHL fans, I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and waving so long on this Friday night. Have a safe and wonderful weekend, folks, and enjoy all the great hockey coming your way, especially in this great league in the MFHL.